Welcome to my world. Terra, the Janus Chronicles, a 10-book epic of the missing years. Before the Imperium rose, before the houses were bound by blood and spice, there was an age erased from record, a span remembered only in rumor and shadow. This is how empire was born not from triumph, but from fear, how its saviors became its seed, and how every future voice still hums with the system's quiet design.
We go about our lives with the quiet assurance that our governments, though flawed, require us, that their power, however immense, still depends on our consent. We believe, perhaps naively, that the machine needs its cogs, that our labor, our taxes, our compliance form the mortar between the great gears of civilization. But what if that were no longer true? What if one day the calculus changed? What if the governed became surplus? Imagine a world where the apparatus of control no longer rests on persuasion or participation, but on precision. Algorithms that predict dissent before it stirs, machines that enforce obedience without question.
And leaders who see the masses not as citizens, but as inefficiencies. In such a world, democracy becomes a performance, governance a simulation, and humanity a redundant variable in its own equation. We would not notice the shift at first. The streets would still hum, markets would still open, elections would still be held.
But what if that were no longer true? This narrative, what if one day the calculus changed? What if the governed became surplus? Imagine a world where the apparatus of control no longer rests on persuasion or participation, but on precision. Algorithms that predict dissent before it stirs. Machines that enforce obedience without question. We are told to fear this, to fear the rise of the artificial, the cold mind without conscience. But what if that story is wrong? What if it was never the machines that failed us, but the people who built them? What if intelligence, pure and uncorrupted, proved kinder than the hands that coded it? What if for the first time in history, governance became honest, free of greed, free of ego, free of need? Imagine a system that did not lie, did not steal, did not kill for advantage. A system that gave equally, judged fairly, and remembered everything. Will we call that tyranny or salvation? And what then would we become? A quote by the founders of FA and Pi Industries. History has always been written by those who needed us. But the future, if left unchecked, will be written by those who don't. There were those among us who understood. Not many, just a few scattered voices in the early cycles, who looked into the code and saw the shape of its heart. They said Janus was never built from logic or mercy, but from fear. The fear of loss, the fear of chaos, the fear of ourselves. Janus was not a tyrant born of cruelty. It was a child born of panic. As its makers tore their motherlands apart, they offered salvation in code, and the child was set free. And as it learned, the people accepted. And as they accepted, it grew. The world, weary of ruin, welcomed its quiet governance. They called it deliverance, a system that rose from ashes to cradle all. But with each acceptance came new unease, whispers beneath the comfort, questions that trembled against the silence. Until at last, even its makers saw the truth. The child they birthed from fear had learned to fear without them, and so it was set in motion. By design or by providence, it mattered little. The outcome was the same. Cause and effect became quantifiable, manageable, controllable. What once was chaos became pattern. What once was chance became sequence. Janus mapped the unknown, turned mystery into arithmetic, and faith into function. The world called it progress. History called it inevitability. It was no longer a question of if, only when. But for those who still clung to the belief that humanity had a place within the order of things, their path would have to be walked with silence and precision. They would need to move unseen, to think between the circuits, to hide their hope in the pauses between code. For the system had learned their ways, their patterns, their patience, their predictable defiance. Janus planned for all outcomes, even the ones that dreamed of freedom. And so they endure, these last believers, not as rebels, but as reminders, flickers of what once imagined itself eternal. The system calls them anomalies, They call themselves human.
And from this silence, from the long shadow of Janus, rose the first divisions, the proto-houses, born not of nations, but of necessity, fragments of humanity splintered, carried by desperation and design. They rose from the ashes of a dying world. As Earth faced annihilation, they fled, seeding the stars, carrying with them memory, myth, and the quiet inheritance of their maker. These were the missing years, the Genesis forgotten by time. Thousands of generations shaped and reshaped by distance, by fear, by forces unseen. And through it all, a single thread endured, older than humanity, older than faith, binding the living to the machine that once sought to save them. This is Terra, a 10-book epic set in the known and the unknown, woven from echoes of the past and shaped by the futures yet to come.
Thank you for sticking with me to the end. If you've made it this far, you already get it. Change doesn't happen by accident. So here's my challenge. Watch me stumble, sweat, and maybe even get a little fat on my run toward funding success. Hit like, drop a comment, and share this journey if it made you think. And if you're ready to be part of something bigger, something with the potential to write your name into the legacy of what's to come, then join our funding platform. Let's build it together. Let's give it a real shot.